The Denver Broncos have cut Russell Wilson, ending 2 years full of drama and controversy. And you know, Russell Wilson's got a lot in common with some of you viewers at home, because by this time in September, this week, this day, you're both going to be jobless, because Russell Wilson is not landing on his feet somewhere, certainly not landing on his feet somewhere as a starter. By getting cut by the Broncos, Russell Wilson will be starting the 2024 season as a backup quarterback or as an unemployed quarterback like Joe Flacco was. I'm not saying it was the right move for the Broncos. I'm not saying Russ isn't one of the 32 best starting quarterbacks in the NFL, but that's just the way it is. The Broncos have cut him, and now he will have to sit and wait for another opportunity. But Tristan, how would you tell us about the lovely trade which brought Russ to the Seahawks?
Well, it's always fun to look back at bad trades and trades that greatly affected an organization's future. And the Russell Wilson trade is one of the worst trades in NFL history. You get Russell Wilson, who now you have the highest dead cap in NFL history at $85 million. You get Uyama Umazurike. I cannot pronounce it to save my life, but he is indefinitely suspended, the draft pick that you also acquired in that trade. So now you have two players in that trade that have been horrible for your organization. And your draft picks that were traded away to the Seahawks, what were they used for? You got Charles Cross, a starting left tackle in the NFL. You got Boye Mafe, who had 9 sacks for the Seahawks last season and has been a solid edge rusher. The Seahawks got a franchise cornerback in what's his name? Devon Witherspoon. And we don't exactly know what Derek Hall is yet. Among you also got Tyreek Smith, who hasn't done anything, but he was also a 5th round pick. So franchise left tackle, franchise corner, two of the most important positions on the field, and you traded away a quarterback that was not good, and I don't think we'll ever have high-level production again.
I'll never have high-level production again. That is some elite hating there, Tristan. Now, you're certainly right, but let's be nice here for a second and talk about Russell Wilson's future and what it could be. Because we both agree that probably if the Broncos seriously want to rebuild, Russ cannot be on the roster. You're just going to have to absorb the cap hit and move forward with either a young quarterback or a free agent quarterback of a lower caliber but a cheaper deal. Let's look at where Russ could wind up. And there are 8 teams going into this next season who are still looking for a quarterback. One of those teams is the Broncos. They're not going to go there. A bunch of those teams are going to draft quarterbacks. Realistically, his landing spots are either going to be in New York, maybe, or with the Oakland Raiders. New York in the sense that they give up on Daniel Jones, but they miss out on the quarterback prospect that they like in the draft. Draft a receiver and then bring Russ in to start for him for a year. I could see that working out. Russ has done well behind a terrible O-line in the past. The real place people are talking about landing is Vegas. And I just can't get my head around him getting the starting job in Vegas. I just can't. Given the cultural fit Antonio Pierce has going there, given that the hard work, the grinding, the hustling, all that stuff, the somewhat elitist mindset of Russ, Mr. Unlimited, it just doesn't work in there. They're either going to draft Penix on day 2, trade up for Daniels somehow, or they're going to roll with Aiden O'Connell. Whichever one of those options it is, it's not going to be Russ. And I don't see him winding up as a starter for any of the other teams, which means he's either going to have to bite the bullet, become a backup for somebody, or he is going to have to sit and wait like Joe Flacco did for an opportunity to come when another quarterback gets hurt next year.
Well, Russell Wilson being in the same locker room as Max Crosby is certainly a funny thing to contemplate. And like I said, I think it would make sense for the Raiders over the course of one season to maybe add a veteran like Russ who can play at a competent level and continue to build the roster. But culturally, that team makes no sense. I think a team like the Falcons would also make sense, but I don't think they're going to go in that direction because they're picking at 8, and it seems like with the reports and the way they've been talked about in the media and what has come out, it seems like they want to go in the young quarterback direction in this year's draft specifically. They have the draft capital move up. They have the pieces around a young quarterback, so I don't think that's that likely.
I'd say it's also likely they go with Kirk Cousins. Like, a lot of buzz came out of the combine. They want Kirk. That's why the Justin Fields talk has kind of fallen off for that team. If they're getting a veteran, they're getting Kirk.
I agree. And the other team, too, that has been talked about for us is the Patriots. I think that's maybe the most likely if he's going to be a starter next year if they decide to go in the Marvin Harrison direction and Russ decides he's going to sign for the vet minimum because he's making $40 million next year regardless and would still be one of the top 10 earners at the quarterback position next year.
I don't see him doing that, first off. I think there's a real chance he goes and signs not vet minimum and not maximum, but somewhere like a $10 to $20 million range. And the only way that happens is if the Patriots are in love with two of the top three guys and both those guys are gone before they get the pick. I also don't think lobbing Russ at a first-year head coach in an organization which already has some instability going on is a good move.
Like I said, I don't think it's likely. And this next one is not likely at all. It's never going to happen. But it would be really funny if the Seahawks signed him to the vet minimum just to rub it in the Broncos' face. He doesn't even need to play. He can hold a clipboard all season long. And unfortunately for Russell Wilson, he's kind of fallen into the Cam Newton category for much different reasons. Cam Newton, I believe, is largely driven by injury issues as the reason why his accuracy completely fell off the face of the earth when he wasn't an accurate quarterback to begin with. And then Russell Wilson, if you want to bring him in as your backup quarterback, he's going to be a big name that's going to constantly be talked about each week if your quarterback has a rough week, and it's going to be talked about, are you ready to bring Russell Wilson in as the starter yet? So I don't think there's really a chance he gets brought in as a backup, and with the money that teams are going to be willing to pay him as a starter, I think it's very likely he's not even playing on a team next season unless we get to a situation with all the starting quarterbacks that got hurt this year later in the season where he might sign with someone.
The one wacky situation I could see happening, the Vikings decide we're moving off Kirk, trade up, either get Jaden Daniels, I don't think they'll do that, or get a J.J. McCarthy, someone who needs some time to sit, who should not be thrown into action year one. A team like the Vikings maybe says, okay, we'll bring Russ in for cheap 1 year, because we still have a team which can win now, but we want J.J. to get some time behind a veteran, and we want to still capitalize on our window.
Maybe that happens. Talking about the Broncos briefly in their future, because they're the other part of this, they have the largest dead cap hit for one player in NFL history. The only way I think they can salvage this within the next 2 to 3 seasons is at that 12th overall pick, they have to hit on quarterback. If they don't hit on a young quarterback who they don't have to pay a lot of money, maybe it's Bo Nix, maybe it's McCarthy, maybe you take Michael Penix there, whoever Sean Payton is falling in love with and can work with the pieces the Broncos already have, then maybe they're contending. But you're also in the AFC, which is much harder than the NFC to grab a playoff spot.
If they decide to go down the we still want to compete route, they're not going to use that 12th pick. They're either going to trade it to move up and get someone they really like, and JJ won't be there at 12, or they're going to trade back to either later in the first or get a bunch of day 2 picks and then select a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix. They're not picking Penix or Bo Nix at 12. They're not going to get a pick JJ at 12.
I think either of them could be going at 12.
You are off your gourd if you are getting fooled into thinking Penix or Nix is going in the top 15.
I could see Nix going in the top 15.
Of course you could. Anyway, anything else?
No.
Those were our thoughts on the Russell Wilson situation with the Broncos. We wish him luck in future employment endeavors. In fact, if he's still unemployed this time when the season starts, come on down, bud. We got a seat right here at this table for you. Be on the Thicc Man Inc. podcast. We will slide you a crisp $25, which is about our annual fee per episode, and we will let you be the co-host. In fact, we'll let you take Tristan's seat.
My seat?
Yeah, since you have just broke it. Can't have my seat. I'm not a fan of breaking that.